Greetings, friends. Welcome to the Pin Tool Podcast. My name is Al Wayman, owner of Creek Road Pottery in Laceyville, Pennsylvania, next to the cold Tuscarora Creek. Pull up a chair around the wheel as we discuss topics concerning the art and craft of pottery, good books, storytelling, marketing, and creating work that matters for folks who care. Greetings, friends. It's me, Al Wayman, and welcome to another podcast of the Pin Tool Podcast. Today, it's Sunday morning, and I am sitting out in my beautiful lawn next to the cold Tuscarora Creek. The lawn was mowed 3 days ago, and already the dandelions are coming up through the grass, and these beautiful orange meadow flowers are just cropping up all over in it, and it sure looks beautiful. And I hope you, the listener, can hear these beautiful birds singing. So it's another day that I get up and get to make pots. I was off for a week at work on vacation, and this month has been pretty hectic, both in the pottery and at work. We had some crazy things going on and some upgrades and working all that out. And in the pottery, had a lot of different things. I had a few shows local that I went to, and I posted some images on those shows on my Facebook page, and I had a real fun time. I loaded up the treadle wheel and went to Knoxon, Pennsylvania, to a little music festival. They had 5 or 6 bands there, and I set up the treadle wheel and threw some old-timey, handmade pots, and the kids had fun watching, and the adults had fun watching, and I sold a few things, and it's always fun to get out and toss pots with the locals. And I realized that if you threw anything over 10 pounds, people gather around, and they're quite amazed, and they may even let you join the band, right? So so I threw some bigs to get some action going, and it was a lot of fun. But here I am now. I'm trying to get caught up. I got a few orders to get out, and Memorial Day weekend's coming up, so we were planning on going on a nice camping trip, but I had to get a lot of work done on my car engine, and it cost about $4,200. Now, friends, I don't know about you, but I don't know any working person that has $4,200 just laying around. So I had to scrounge a little bit from our accounts, take some stuff out of our savings, sell some pots, and not get supplies to go on that camping trip because I didn't realize the car bill would be so expensive. But I finally got it back. It runs great, and guess what? It's paid for, and I don't have a car payment because I'd rather spend $4,200 on making the repairs and driving a couple of years than getting another used vehicle. So I think I lucked out there. So I just been relaxing, trying to get caught up, and I got a bunch of mugs I gotta glaze later today, and I have a bunch of bowls I need to glaze later today, and I'll probably do a firing later tonight, so those pots will come out Memorial Day afternoon, and then I can go to my aunt's for a picnic. And then when I get back, finish boxing things up and send things out on Tuesday morning. So I was happy to be interviewed by the Potscast podcast, and I'll post a link for it in the description. And it was a lot of fun. Went over some of my background, how I think about pots. And we're going to talk about the topic a little bit more on what that topic was that I talked about with Samantha is about the kiln gods, right? Because I am of the belief there are no kiln gods. So I'll explain a little more about what I mean by that. But I hope that you all are having an excellent summer, and May is finally here, and the birds are singing, and it's warming up, and we made it through the long, cold winter. Thank goodness. I didn't get the garden in yet. I've been holding off. We had a few frosts already. We had to bring in the tomato plants a few times that we had sprouted. So it's just been a little bit chilly, but I'm hoping to get on that quickly. If not Memorial Day, soon after that, to get things in. I put in grow bags, and everything's rocky up here, so we use grow bags. Another thing that happened, which was pretty interesting, that I almost forgot to tell you. I had a wood kiln given to me. I was throwing pots, Mother's Day, minding my own business, and I got a text from my old professor, and Matt Pobsey out of Marywood University. He's a really good artist. He panned me and he said, "Hey Al, we have this kiln, and we're getting too old to fire it. Do you want it?" And I never answered a text so fast, friends. So I'm talking to an old friend who helped him manage it, and Matt, and we're gonna make plans to take that kiln apart and bring it over here to my property and reconstruct it. Now, I need to raise money to do all that, because I'll probably have to rent a flatbed truck or have a driver come over, load it on, and bring it over. Once we get all the bricks stacked on the pallets, I'll need a pad put in to put the kiln on top, and then I'll need a pavilion over top of it. But we'll get there, because I'm not saying no to this thing. Another thing about wood firing, Samantha has scheduled myself, Tim C., and another to talk about wood firing on her podcast over at the Potscast podcast. So if you catch that, it'll be coming out. We'll post links for it. That'll be a really good discussion. I have fired wood in the past, not a whole lot. I'm a gas guy. For the last 7 years, 8 years, I've just been firing gas, all gas, updrafts. But before that, I did a few wood firings. But being that I'm building one here, or reconstructing one and putting one in, I thought I'd go on and maybe I could learn something from Tim C. He's a pretty decent wood fire guy and wonderful artist. And if you haven't seen any of his work, he does some amazing cartoon line drawings on wood-fired tin cans and mugs. He makes the ceramic ware look like tin cans. He does back wiping of red iron oxide on his pieces and uses underglazes, and just does amazing work. So he's from upstate New York. I'm going to be on chatting with him about all that. So if you can make it, listen. I think it'll be very educational for everybody, and even myself. Maybe I can ask Tim C. some tips on how I can get this process underway to save myself some pain, right? So I have some plans already on how I'm going to do it. I just need to take it down, stack all the bricks on pallets, get them over here, and then they turned over all the plans to the kiln. So I have all the plans, and I'm going to try labels and take pictures, but it's going to be a big job. But I'm not going to say no to it, because I don't know anybody that would say no to a free wood kiln. Would you? All right, so let me know. We're going to head down to the creek again. Maybe I'll just stay here, right? I'll just stay here. And I'm going to go get a coffee first. How about that? I'm going to run and get a coffee. And you all grab chairs and you all come down and hang out in my backyard next to the cold Tuscarora Creek among the flowers and the singing birds. And we're going to talk about the kiln gods today. So I'll see you in a minute, okay? All right, so I made it back, got my coffee. Hopefully you all are here, got your chairs gathered around amongst the flowers next to the cold Tuscarora Creek on this beautiful Sunday morning. And the topic we're going to talk about is kiln gods. Because you hear people joke about it all the time, and they're putting work in the kiln, and they're hoping the kiln gods give them an excellent load. Well, there's a secret to appeasing the kiln gods, and that secret is there are no kiln gods. Now, I laugh about that because when I was back at the all-women's pottery, she used to place this beautiful Mexican ceramic lady with this beautiful dress on top the kiln. And that lady was the kiln goddess, and if she was on there, we were supposed to get a perfect load every time, even when we didn't. So, and I still have her. My mentor from the all-women's pottery, when I helped her retire and shut down her studio, probably about 5 years ago now, she gave me the kiln goddess to put on my kiln. And so don't tell anybody. I have used it a few times, just for old-timey memories, not necessarily for results. So if you think about it, nobody ever says, I hope the throwing gods help me make this mug. I'm leaving it up to the throwing gods. Or nobody ever said, I hope that my bowls turn out. I'm just going to take this 1 pound ball of clay, start tossing, and I'm just hoping that the throwing gods help me make this bowl. Like, I never heard that. And friends, I have never heard, oh, I need to trim a lot of pots today. I sure hope that the trim gods help me trim out all these mugs and get them handled. Or, oh, I sure hope that the trim gods help me trim out all these bowls and that I don't go through the bottom on any of them. I never heard that. And even when it comes to bisque firing, I never heard, oh, I'm going to leave it up to the bisque fire gods and hope that my slab platter doesn't crack, right? I never heard that. It's always the kiln gods, and it's always mostly coming out of the glaze load, right? So what I think what happens is what we may fear and what we might not know about, we tend to leave to the gods and to fate to help it work out. But as we practice and we do things more often, we get more comfortable with process and we get more comfortable with technique to where there are fewer mistakes. So when you're first throwing and you're learning to throw, you're pretty happy after the 20th time once you get it centered and once you get a few pulls out of your ball of clay that's spinning on the wheel. You're pretty happy that you made a cup, right? I remember when I first made my cup in ceramics. Ceramics 2 was throwing. Ceramics 1 was slab building. But I was pretty happy when I spun out my first cup, right? And you might want to keep that cup and be happy about it. And you might even feel lucky that you got that cup at all, because the process was a little bit unknown still, and you feel that fate or luck or the throwing gods may have helped you out a little bit, and you're just like, oh, thank goodness. And then you go to the drying stage after you get that throwing, maybe handle pulling. Oh, thank goodness the handles didn't crack, right? So each stage that we work through, we become more and more familiar with the techniques. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about not being afraid to do your firings and concentrate more on the process rather than the results, maybe. So this will help you get better at the techniques without caring so much for the results. And you'll be like, Al, how are you going to do that? Because we need results. Like, I'm making all these mugs. I don't waste my time. I want them all to come out. However, results and the final pieces will be the byproduct of good process and good technique done without fear. So, should we play it safe and not take chances? No. As artists, we have permission to mess up, right? And I know a lot of artists and potters who say you have to make 100 mugs to get a good one. And you shouldn't keep any mugs until you hit mug 101, right? And there's a reason for that. Not everybody agrees, but there's a reason for that. It's because they want you to practice the technique over and over so that you could make a lot more mugs rather than just keep and perfect the one, right? So that's the same idea applied to firing. And it can be scary, but I think that if there are certain techniques that you might do and you have problems that you're trying to troubleshoot and work out, spend more time working out those problems and those techniques rather than focusing on getting the piece to come out of the kiln at all. So I think a good technique would be to say, I'm going to put all these mugs in here. These are new type handles, and I practiced dipping when I usually use a brush. And I dipped these twice. I have no idea how they're going to come out, but this is my dipping glaze, and I need to practice dipping. So the only way that you're going to get good at practice dipping is to dip a lot of pots, right? So you need to give yourself permission to screw it up bad to learn the techniques of dipping. So after you get all your pots dipped, right, you'll say, well, I'm going to put these through the kiln. Because I practiced dipping, I want to see how they turn out. So you fire that load. They all look ugly, right? They all look ugly. The glaze browns out, right? Because this was a new test for a new glaze, and you're just getting to know it. Maybe your kiln in the center fired hot, right? She's like, man, this glaze fired out hot. Burned out all my color. But all my dip lines are straight. And nothing stuck to the shelves. I learned to dip. And that is amazing. So next time, when I fire, I just need to concentrate on the correct temperature. So that's how you would advance towards getting better and better kiln loads and not depending so much on the kiln gods, or any gods for that matter. It's just through practice and trying things out. So, are some things left up to fate? For sure. But the more you practice at a craft, and the more you practice at what you do, the more familiar and the more easier it is to do those techniques that you once struggled with before. Like learning to ride a bike. You can't say that you want to do the Tour de France just hopping on a bike if you never even rode one before. You probably could, and you can work your way to the Tour de France, but you need to fall off that bike and figure out how to pedal it first, right? So that's what we're doing. We're pedaling. You cannot hop on the bike if you never even rode it, or only rode it a few times, and say, I'm leaving it up to the kiln gods to help me win the Tour de France. You just got to practice. And the more you practice, get a good team of people around you, you can Lance Armstrong it out. So that's how that works, I think. And so just like with throwing, just like with trimming, your glazing, your firing should be that way also. And don't ever think that work cannot be influenced inside the kiln. There's many different firing techniques. There's many different firing schedules. And I think that the work is not complete once you glaze it. So I hear some people talk about, well, I glazed my piece and I put it in the kiln and I hope for the best. Here at Pottery, I fire updraft kilns manually. I got 5 updrafts, and I need to be out there when they're firing, right? And I need to watch that cone, and I need to be doing stuff to that kiln because it's not automatic, and I don't leave it up to the kiln gods. I know that some of those kilns fire hot bottoms, hot tops, and a whole bunch of different things. So each kiln, in essence, has its own personality. So I may decide that something may need to go another 15 minutes past the cone drop, just so the top comes in better. Updrafts tend to fire uneven. There's usually a cone difference from the bottom to the top shelf. So what I have been doing is getting a wide range glaze. I fire cone 4 to 6, and I put those pots in. And where I would like the different effects to happen, I put those pots in the different places of the kiln. And also, too, I can mess with the top damper by closing that up a little bit, creating more reduction. I can open that up, creating less reduction. And if I want oxidation, I just put it in the kiln that has the most holes. And I leave the peepholes out, and I fire an oxidation load in a gas kiln. So as long as I keep that flame just under the lid, I'm not getting heavy reduction. Air's being drawn in through the ports and through the peepholes, and I can get an oxidation load in the reduction kiln. So if I want to reduce that more, I have the flame licking out of that top hole just a little bit, and using up oxygen in that kiln to change those glazes in there a little bit better. And also, it's where the flame hits the pots too. I always find interesting. Another thing that I've been doing lately to influence the firing and not be so dependent on the kiln gods, and to create work inside the kiln, I have been pushing wood down into that hole. And it's like raku firing at cone 6. So I have a catch bowl, a big cracked catch bowl, one of my bigs that had a bottom cracker in. It's bisque, and I put it underneath the top hole of the vent in the top of the kiln. And at the end of the firing, once that cone drops, I push wood down in there and I close it off and let it smoke out in there, kind of like a raku firing. And that ups the reduction process in the kiln. And I get some really beautiful carbon trapping in those glazes and smoke lines and all kinds of stuff in the pots. So actually, I am making art and influencing the work, even though it's being fired in the kiln, and even though the process is almost done. That's the beautiful part of it. And once I get the wood kiln here, I'm going to be able to maybe try a few things using wood. And there's many other firing techniques. There's pit firing and all kinds of things that you can do. So don't ever think that you need to depend on the kiln gods. You just need lots of practice so that you can get your work through all the processes and tell your story to the world when it comes out, right? Because if you don't tell your story to the world, someone else will. And you may not like what they say, right? So be sure to make good work and use your time wisely. We don't have a lot of time left. Think on your end, because it'll help you make better decisions, right? It'll tell you what you're wasting time on. So I hope that was a really good conversation, and I hope that you enjoyed that, our little discussion. I hope you enjoyed hearing the birds sing behind me. So my next big project is going to be to get that big wood kiln here. And I may file for some grants and maybe even take out a small business loan maybe, to get that pad put in, get the pavilion up, and get that kiln up. So that's going to be my next big project, right? Maybe the kiln gods can help me out with that. My dad came over, and he's a big wood stove guy. We've always burned wood as a kid, and he went to pellet stoves when he got a little bit older and didn't feel like splitting wood. But he came over and looked at the spot where I was going to put the kiln and help me figure out wind direction so I'd get a good draw. The stack for this kiln's going to be 20 foot high, and he's looking around at the trees, talking about downdrafts and things. So he really pointed out some really good things, and he never even seen a wood kiln in his life. He looked it up when I was talking about it, but just from wood stoves, he was able to give me some really good input. So hopefully you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. And I wanted to tell everybody I launched a new Facebook business page. The other one got hacked up by bad guys. I didn't have access to it, and I lost 7 years. It's still there. You can still see it, and it's still being displayed. But I started a Creek Road Pottery Part 2, because I think with this wood kiln, it's going to take this work a whole nother direction. And so if you want to be the first to come over and like that page, I would really appreciate it. Just say hi. I lost over 3,000 people with losing that page, but you can always restart, and you only need 1 or 2 people to help you do that, right? So if you want to be the first, come over and like the page, follow along, and I'll be posting on how that wood kiln project's going. I got a few pictures up about it so that you can go over there and see it. And hopefully next month I'll have some stuff stacked on pallets. My big goal is to get it over here by the fall, right? If not up by the fall. I just need to get it here to say I have a wood kiln. Once it's here, I think half the battle's going to be over. All right, friends. Well, hopefully you enjoyed that conversation on a lovely Sunday morning. I have to run some pots to a gallery show down in Scranton, Pennsylvania. They're having a summer member show, and my work's going to be there. Taking some stuff in today, some carbon trapping examples, and some cups, right? Gas-fired cups. Treadle throne gas-fired cups. Well, the reason why I've been making a lot of cups, I know I'm droning on here. I just been working, and I just don't get the handles on the mugs, right? So, so you make cups. You make lemonade out of the lemons. Well, take care. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and do good work, and happy potting.